Welcome to my YouTube channel American Story Hub. The noon sun hung over Fort Halston like a molten badge of authority, scorching the parade ground until the air above it shimmered. More than 300 soldiers stood in rigid formations, sweat trailing from brows that dared not move, uniforms stiff and glinting in the harsh light. Yet for all the discipline and order, tension rippled through the ranks like a silent alarm. They had all been assembled for one reason. General Marcus Brigg, a man whose reputation preceded him like a storm, loud, destructive, unpredictable. His temper was infamous across the base, his punishments legendary for their brutality, and his sense of superiority was unshakable. Soldiers followed his commands not because they respected him, but because they feared him. Now, every eye was fixed on the center of the formation, where one young officer stood alone. Lieutenant Avery Holt, slim, calm, her spine straight as an iron rod, she stood quiet and almost delicate among giants. Her dark brown hair was neatly braided back, her expression unreadable, her uniform pressed crisp as if the blistering heat couldn't touch her. For the moment, she looked like just another officer. But the truth was far from that. Every soldier stared, waiting, barely breathing, as General Brigg approached her with heavy, thundering steps. And then it happened. He sneered, furious, lips curling in contempt. "Look at you," he growled, voice echoing. "A weak Btch who thinks she can stand equal to real soldiers." Then, without warning, thud, his combat boot slammed into her ribs, the sound crackling across the parade ground like a gunshot. Gasps rippled through the ranks. A few soldiers winced, others clenched their jaws, some looked away, but no one dared to move. No one dared to speak. General Brigg's smile widened. He thought he had broken her. He thought humiliation would crush her. He thought the kick had ended this. But Avery Holt didn't fall. She stumbled, just for a heartbeat. Then stood straight again, silent, centered, unshakably calm. Brigg's brow tightened. Her lack of reaction irritated him more than anything. "You think you're tough," he hissed. "You think you belong here. You're a pathetic embarrassment." Avery didn't blink. She simply dusted off her uniform and met his eyes with a cool, level stare. "Are we done here, sir?" The words were soft, controlled, but in the scorching silence, they struck like a blade. General Brigg stepped closer until his nose nearly touched hers. "Not even close," he growled. The breaking point. Avery stood motionless as Brigg shoved her shoulder hard enough to force her back a step. Murmurs flickered through the ranks. Anger, shock, fear, but again, no one moved. Brigg circled her like a predator sizing up prey, voice growing louder. "You don't deserve that uniform," he spat. "You don't deserve this base. And you damn sure don't deserve my time. You're a fragile, useless." He shoved her again, harder. Still, she didn't react. This calm infuriated him. Brigg's voice rose into a roar that echoed across the base. "You're going to cry, aren't you? Go ahead, cry, break. That's what women like you do." A soldier in formation clenched his fists. Another shook with anger. Avery inhaled slowly, lifting her head. "Sir," she said quietly, "stop." That single word froze him. "Stop." Brigg laughed loudly, turning to the watching soldiers. "She wants me to stop. Isn't that adorable?" He turned back to her, voice dripping taunt. "What are you going to do, Lieutenant? Run, complain, call your mommy?" Avery's jaw tightened slightly, not in anger, but in decision. She took one step forward, and spoke, with calm, with power, with identity. "Sir," she said clearly, "I am Avery Holt, call sign, Kestrel, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, United States Navy SEAL." Silence slammed across the parade ground. Every soldier froze. General Brigg's face drained of color. Kestrel," he breathed. "That Kestrel." Avery did not nod with pride or arrogance. Just confirmation. "Yes, sir." Brigg stumbled back half a step. Because suddenly, the woman he kicked in front of 300 soldiers wasn't an ordinary officer. She was Kestrel, the SEAL whose record was sealed under classified clearance. The operator rumored to have completed missions so dangerous that most soldiers only whispered about them. The woman whose reputation was silently respected across branches. And General Brigg had just assaulted her. In public, in front of witnesses, on camera. His throat tightened. He was finished, and he knew it. Avery, Lieutenant Holt, this was a misunderstanding, he stammered. You didn't. Why didn't you say something earlier? Avery looked at him with a calm that cut deeper than fury. Because I don't use my past to intimidate people, she said. But you used your rank to abuse them. The witnesses speak. Brigg tried to regain control. This is unnecessary. We can handle this internally. No need for formal complaints. Avery stepped back, distancing herself from his reach, her voice composed. This isn't just about me, she said. This is about every soldier you've bullied. Every life you've made miserable. Every abuse you thought your rank could hide. She looked at the soldiers standing in formation. I speak today because many of them can't. Her words pierced the air. Brigg's fear turned into anger. You're ending your career, Holt. You think the Navy will protect you. You're finished. Avery lifted an eyebrow slightly. My career isn't the one in danger. A nearby non-commissioned officer stepped forward abruptly. Sir, with all due respect, he said loudly, she's right. You've crossed the line too many times. Another soldier joined him, and another. Soon, more than 20 soldiers had stepped out of formation. Brigg spun around, furious. Get back in line. That's an order. But no one moved. They only stared, and their silence was the loudest rebellion Fort Halston had seen in years. The inquiry. By evening, the parade ground incident had flooded through the base like wildfire. Witness reports were collected. Digital footage was reviewed. Medical officers documented the bruising on Avery's ribs. Statements from soldiers poured in one after another. Stories of Brigg's verbal abuse, intimidation tactics, and physical misconduct that had gone unreported for years. A panel of senior officers launched an immediate inquiry. Brigg was suspended within 24 hours. Then he was stripped of command. Then formally discharged pending court-martial. The man who had terrorized the base for years now sat trembling in a cold, gray interrogation room, waiting for consequences he had never imagined could touch him. But this story wasn't about him. This story was about Avery Holt, the quiet storm who had finally broken years of silence. The past behind the warrior. Many wondered how someone like Avery, calm, quiet, almost serene, had become a SEAL. What kind of fire did a person carry to reach such heights? Avery Holt was born into chaos. Her father, a decorated Marine, died during active duty when she was 8. Her mother struggled with grief, leaving Avery to grow up quickly, learning discipline and resilience on her own. By 16, she was training harder than most academy cadets. By 18, she could outrun and outshoot men twice her size. When she enlisted in the Navy, no one thought she'd attempt Btch. When she attempted Btch, no one thought she'd survive the first week. When she survived the first week, no one thought she'd pass Hell Week. When she passed Hell Week, people stopped doubting her altogether. She became Kestrel, because she moved like a hunting bird, quiet, precise, unstoppable. But after years of deployments, classified missions, and wounds that went deeper than skin, Avery made a choice. She wanted to serve in a different way. She requested assignment back home, Fort Halston, hoping to use her experience to train young soldiers, to make the system better from the inside. She didn't expect corruption waiting for her. She didn't expect a man like Brigg wielding power like a weapon. But she also didn't expect to become the spark that ignited change. The base transforms. In the weeks following Brigg's removal, Fort Halston shifted like a wounded animal learning to breathe again. Training became fairer. Respect became mutual. Rules were enforced without fear. Soldiers walked straighter. Not because they were scared, but because they felt valued. Avery didn't demand praise. She didn't want parades. She didn't even want to talk about it. But the soldiers talked anyway. They spoke with pride. They spoke with relief. They spoke with gratitude. Because finally, someone had stood up. A new generation. Avery began teaching advanced combat techniques. Her classes filled instantly. She taught humility before strength, control before aggression, discipline before dominance. Young recruits looked at her with awe, but she reminded them. Respect doesn't come from rank. It comes from character. Under her guidance, the base flourished. And in time, she found something she never sought, family. The confrontation before the end. One evening, weeks after his removal, Brigg tried to approach Avery outside the administrative building, desperate, broken, voice trembling. Avery, listen to me, I'm begging you. Don't testify in the final hearing. I'll lose everything, please. Avery turned calmly, a soft evening breeze brushing her hair. You should have thought about that before abusing the people under your command, she said. You don't understand, Brigg cried. This system, it rewards brutality. I did what I had to do. Avery stared at him. No, you did what made you feel powerful. There's a difference. Brigg's shoulders sagged as though her words carried the weight of truth he could no longer avoid. And for the first time, he had nothing left to say. The final hearing. The courtroom was silent when Avery stepped in. Cameras were banned, phones were confiscated, but the air buzzed with expectation. She took the stand. Her testimony was calm, measured, truthful, unembellished. She didn't try to ruin Brigg. She simply told the truth. And the truth was enough. Brigg was found guilty, dishonorably discharged, stripped of rank, benefits, authority, and legacy. It was over. Legacy of a warrior. Months passed. Fort Halston grew stronger. Morale soared. Soldiers walked with pride. They didn't fear their leaders anymore. They respected them. And whenever someone asked what sparked the change, the answer was simple. Kestrel, the warrior who stood without raising a fist. The SEAL who fought corruption with truth. The officer who showed them that justice, real justice, was worth fighting for. General Brigg had thought he could break her. Instead, she broke the silence. The closing moment. On a quiet morning months later, Avery stood alone on the parade ground where everything had begun. The sun rose gently across the sky, painting the world gold. She touched her ribs lightly, the place where Brigg had tried to shatter her. Then she smiled, not because she had won, but because no one would ever suffer under him again. A voice called behind her, "Ma'am." She turned to see a young private, nervous yet determined. "Thank you," he said, swallowing. "For everything." Avery nodded softly. "Serve with honor," she replied. He nodded and jogged off, energized. Avery looked out over the silent base, filled with new life. This was the justice she fought for. Not revenge, not glory, just change. And she had accomplished it. Quietly, calmly, steadily, like a kestrel soaring high, silent, sharp, unstoppable.